Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception, and we are here at chapter 20 in the book of Acts, this book that teaches us so much about the development of the early church. And I like to call the book of Acts the adventure novel of the New Testament. All kinds of action, all kinds of travel, all kinds of theology that is there that teaches us so much about how we as a church ought to spread the gospel. It really is a textbook for missions and how we do that. And we've seen a lot of that already. We're here. Paul is in chapter 20. Paul is wrapping up his third missionary journey. The first missionary journey gets a lot of attention. The second missionary journey does as well. The third missionary journey, there's not as much dialogue, more travelogue, what's going on, who's where, doing what. There was in Ephesus a good bit that we talked about, but the balance of it moving forward is a lot of who went where and what was going on. There's still a lot for us to learn from that. And as we're, closing out the missionary journey portion of Acts, we won't do that today, but I thought it would be good for us to just go back and review a little bit, to take a look at the word review. You know what the problem with the word review is? And I'm not being a good educator this morning. Good educators don't use the word review, because you say review and your audience, the class, whatever, just tunes out. We're not going to review. We're going to take a look at how we got where we are in this lesson and why. We spend a lot of time looking and talking about Acts 1:8 because it is the theme of the book of Acts. But Jesus said to the disciples, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come upon you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." And we've talked about like ripples in a pond, those rings going out of the gospel message, expanding and advancing. And again, in Acts, we just have pretty much the journeys of Paul. Once we get past Acts 10:11, we're shown what Peter was doing and some of the others. Then it's just Paul, because Luke travels a good bit with Paul. It's so important as we study Acts and read Acts that we remember similar things were going on with the other 12, because Paul was the other 12 apostles. Well, I guess it really is 11 because the other 11 apostles, now that we've settled on that number, in different, we have church, when you remember as a kid, I'm thinking about back in the day before everybody had cell phones and social media, and your family, whoever it might be, aunt and uncle, can go on a trip to Greece, whatever else, and they don't have to wait until they come home with their slides, actual slides. You had to have a machine you put them in, and it projected it on a sheet that Dad would tack to the wall. Back in my day, you had to wait for the relatives to come and visit to bring their slides and bore you to death with what their trip was about. Okay? Not today. You get it instantly. Okay? You can get bored while they're there with their snapshots of having espresso in a Greek cafe. That's not what this is about. Luke knows, guided by the Holy Spirit, Luke knows exactly what he's doing. He wasn't going to waste a single drop of ink or one page of vellum or parchment, whatever it might have been, that he was writing on as he wrote Theophilus. Remember at the beginning of the book, meant to touch on that before, he addressed the book to Theophilus, that name that means Theo, like Theos, God, Philos, like Philadelphia, lover of God. This man who was a lover of God It was that man who had commissioned Luke to write Luke, the Gospel of Luke, and the book of Acts. It's volume 1 and 2. But Luke wasn't going to waste a single drop of ink or writing material with anything that didn't matter. He tells us that Paul came up here. Need to change that color. Can't see what color that is. He tells us Paul came up here and went to these different cities again, and then came over to Ephesus for a reason. Paul was building up. He was nurturing. He was visiting these congregations, and he didn't just pass through and show them the slides on the wall of where he'd been and what he'd done. He was building up the leaders. He was building up the congregation. He was teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you, as Jesus said in Matthew 28:20. Teach them these things. Paul was equipping in these different locations. He was equipping the leaders who were able to continue that teaching. That is why we're told that he went back through these places. And then from Ephesus, which is on the third missionary journey, we're told he's going to go back up around again and come back down to Corinth, going back to Philippi, going back to Thessalonica, going back to Berea, stopping at Troas. We're never really told much. Today we'll have some things that went on at Troas, but Troas kind of gets left out. Don't know why. Coming back to Corinth, okay? That's what's going on. That's what we have here. So after the uproar ceased, they're in Ephesus, third missionary journey. Paul sent for the disciples, and after encouraging them, he said farewell and departed for Macedonia, like I just showed you on the map. When he had gone through these regions and had given them much encouragement. Doesn't really say much, does it? But it does. It does. In his previous chapters, Luke has taught us the things that Paul would say, how he would introduce the gospel, but now he's there in a different capacity. He's there building up, teaching, equipping, so that the leaders can continue to minister to and serve the congregations. He's training shepherds, and there's something more going on, and we're going to get to it in just a moment. He headed to Greece, and it says Greece. It didn't have to say where in Greece he was going, because everybody knows he's going to Corinth. That's where he spent time before. He's going to Corinth. He's there in Corinth. He spent 3 months. And when a plot was made against him by the Jews, as he was about to set sail for Syria, he decided to return through Macedonia. Intrigue, right? And we could read right over this, moving on. And no, there was a plot. There was a plot against him. What was that plot? They were trying to kill him. They were after him. Intrigue, drama. As a result of that plot made against him by whom? By whom? The Jews. The Jews. They were always attacking. Many of them converted. Those who didn't, their hearts were hardened, and they were just continuing to come after Paul. As he was about to set sail for Syria. Where's Syria? Syria's over here. This is Syria. He was going to sail from Corinth, hop on a boat, and cruise over here to Syria. But he doesn't. Why doesn't he? He's going to go back up through Macedonia, up here. We'll keep this up, and you're going to have all these places memorized. He's going to pass up through Macedonia again. Why? Because of the plot of the Jews. Apparently, if he got on that ship, maybe he knew they were going to try to get him there. How do you escape on a ship? If there are bad actors after you on a ship, how do you get away? They've got agents there. Real intrigue here. Don't get on the ship. Don't get on the ship. Buy the ticket. Don't cancel your fare. And then just go overland, right back up. Just go overland, right back up where you'd been before. It's not what Paul wanted to do, but by doing this, what did he get to do? He got to see the Bereans. He got to see the Thessalonians. He got to see the Philippians. He got to go, that's the Thessalonians. This is the Philippians up here. He got to go see those people again. God uses opposition. God uses adversity. God uses the bad things that seem to be bad But is it really bad? No. The Lord used these bad actors trying to kill him. If he would have sailed for Syria, he uses them to send Paul back up through here again, building up all the churches. What does the Holy Spirit at this point know that Paul doesn't? We're going to see. We're not getting to it today. Remember, as Paul is journeying through here and coming back up around, and they're going to sail, we'll see this in a moment, from Philippi over to Troas, and then work their way down here, finally, to Ephesus. Paul's getting a message. Paul is being told something as he's traveling through here, and we'll talk about that next time in the video next week. So, plot was made against him by the Jews as he was about to set sail for Syria. He decided to return through Macedonia. Just drew that out for you, literally. Now, listen here. Sopater, or Sopater, depending on how you want to pronounce it, Sopater the Berean, son of Pyrrhus, accompanied him, and of the Thessalonians, Aristarchus and Secundus, and Gaius of Derbe, and Timothy, and the Asians, Tychicus and Trophimus. We could hop right over that and not really think about it. But what does it tell us? So let's just go through this. Let's just check it out. So we've got Sopater the Berean. Well, he's from over here. And of the Thessalonians, where were the Thessalonians? They're right up here. So we've got a Berean, and that's Sopater, and Aristarchus and Secundus from Thessalonica, and Gaius of Derbe. Where's Derbe? That's way back over here. There's Derbe. And Timothy, who was from Antioch up here, and the Asians and Trophimus. Where's the Asians? Where do they live? What was Asia? This was Asia, Ephesus. What's the point? Why is Luke telling us this? Why does it matter? It matters because Paul had people from all of these places where he had gone. How many believers were there in Derbe when he got there? How many believers were there in Thessalonica, in Asia, in Antioch? How many believers were there? None. He had planted the seed. He had equipped men there to continue to pastor, to shepherd. Some of them, like the Christians in Philippi, we know for sure, they supported him time and again as he traveled about and went different places. These other churches did as well. But what else did they do? They sent workers. You want to know when a mission is no longer a mission, but is now an operative church? It's when they're sending people out to share the message. So we've got Sopater and Aristarchus and Secundus and Gaius and Timothy and Tychicus and Trophimus. And if you read through Paul's letters and just mark the names, just mark all the different names that pop up. People who were with him, people who had been with him here in Acts, the cast of characters, they come and they go, It's because it's all about Paul. Luke comes and goes as well. We'll see that today. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. He's not just listing these names off so that they get some ink. You know, in Hollywood, it's all about the credits, right? I tell this story. I know my family knows it. Big John Wayne fan. His last movie, The Shootist. In the movie, if you watch the movie The Shootist, he mentions the horse's name 4 times. He had used that horse in multiple Western movies, and he knew he was dying. He knew he was at the end. And he said he'd do the movie, but he wanted to be able to mention the horse's name multiple times. The horse's name is Dollar. This isn't Luke listing off the names of these people like John Wayne was listing off Dollar so that he'd get some airtime because he loved the horse and had been a great animal for him through all these different Westerns. That's not what's going on. Luke is telling us the church was growing and maturing. It was doing the work of missions by sending these people along with Paul. I was a missionary, and I can't imagine as a missionary what it must have been like. I had people who taught me how to be a missionary, right? These people got to learn from Paul. Can you imagine? That's incredible. But these churches were growing, they were maturing, and they were sending people out to spread the gospel. You want to see a church that's lost its first love, that's a plant for the video on Revelation coming out in the letter from Jesus to the church in Ephesus. And he tells them they've lost their first love. One of the things that'll happen when you lose your first love in the church is you quit being about missions. You quit being a field of missions right there in your own vicinity, and certainly not sending it out to others and supporting and promoting that work and sending people out to do the work. The church was growing, it was maturing, and it was an amazing thing. And Luke is saying, pay attention, those of you who have been watching, these went on ahead and were waiting for us at Troas, but we sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread, and in 5 days we came to them at Troas, where we stayed for 7 days. Did you get it? Did you catch it? I know some of you out there are going, yes, you're raising your hand and saying, yes, I got it. We're back to the we passages. Argument can be made the last we passages ended in Philippi. Maybe Luke had stayed the whole time in Philippi, gone here and there from Philippi, but used that as his headquarters. Now they're going from Philippi, and here's Luke. The we passages. And here they are. If you want to pause and make note, Acts 16, 10 to 17 here, Acts 20, and really it runs all the way through 21, 18. And then Luke's off doing whatever because Paul's arrested. We've got several chapters with him in jail. And then the journey to Rome, Luke is there with him again. But Luke is now back in the picture. This is now firsthand. He was there. But they sailed away from Philippi after the days of unleavened bread. When's that? Passover. We're in the spring here. And in 5 days, we came to them at Troas. So we're right back here at Troas. Okay. Took them 5 days to sail from here to there. Kind of a long journey for that distance that they traveled, but we'll take Luke's word for it. Now they're at Troas. And while I say that there isn't really much talked about as far as the church at Troas, not like, and it's true, it isn't talked about like Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, other places, Ephesus, but a very interesting thing happens here, Troas, and it's something that should always serve as a warning for pastors and teachers. On the first day of the week, what's the first day of the week? That's Sunday. Sunday, believers are getting together on Sunday, that pattern of behavior already established. On the first day of the week, it's not the Sabbath. On the first day of the week, when we were gathered together to break bread, that's the Lord's Supper. Paul talked with them, intending to depart on the next day, and he prolonged his speech until midnight. He's just going. And think about how much teaching he had done. Think about the sermons he had preached every day, nonstop, while he was working, making tents. People would come there in the hall of Tyrannus in Ephesus, teaching, holding forth every day. People would stick around and he would continue to teach, teaching. And he never gets tired of it. It's not like, okay, I've put in my time, I'm done. It certainly wasn't, hey, you got your half hour, I'm out of here, sing a song, tell everybody go home. I got a game to watch. No, he was teaching. He taught until midnight. There were many lamps in the upper room where they were gathered, and a young man named Eutychus, sitting at the window, sank into a deep sleep as Paul talked still longer. I love the way Luke puts it. And he's not knocking Paul. I mean, Paul wasn't just talking because he liked to hear himself speak. That this is a demonstration of Paul's passion. There were souls who were hungry. He knew, we're going to see this soon, he wasn't going to get to see them again. And he was going to teach. He was going to be spent for them. You think of a mother who gets up early in the morning with the kids. She spends all day with them. In the evening, if one of them's not feeling well and chases all day, tired, exhausted, at the end of the day, the child's sick, dad's on a business trip. What's mom going to do? She'll stay up with the little one and hold it in her lap, even though it's like hugging a hot water bottle. and give it medication and stay up and take care of it. Mom is willing to be spent for the children. Paul was willing to be spent for the gospel, for the saving of souls. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't talking to them about politics. He wasn't teaching them about history. He was building them up in their relationship, that real relationship with Jesus Christ. And he's going to stay up all night. He's got a journey tomorrow. He's going to stay up all night. We're told there were many lamps in the upper room. Lamps suck the oxygen out of the room also. And a young man named Eutychus, sitting at the window, sank into a deep sleep as Paul talked still longer, and being overcome by sleep, he fell down from the 3rd story and was taken up dead. Think about that. You're there, this amazing moment, Paul's teaching, everybody's listening with rapt attention. Eutychus sitting in the window. Maybe he worked a lot that day. Maybe he's just tired. Maybe he's too close to one of those lamps and it's sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Falls out of a 3rd story window and is taken up dead. But Paul went down and bent over him and taking him in his arms said, "Do not be alarmed, for his life is in him." Paul brought him back from the dead is what happens. He's speaking of it. He's not making a big deal about it. He's not making a big deal about it. The important thing was the guy's brought back to life. The miracle wasn't to be the big thing. And when Paul had gone up and had broken bread and eaten, take a little breather, he conversed with them a long while until daybreak, and so departed. And they took the youth away alive and were not a little comforted. Understatement, right? The scriptures understate so many things. But after that, Paul still teaches all night. It's just amazing to me, the energy, the enthusiasm for the gospel. Never got old, never got old. But going ahead to the ship, we that sail for Assos, intending to take Paul aboard there, for so he had arranged, intending himself to go by land. Pop up a map. Because I know what you're all thinking of. You're thinking, we get a map? So here's the map of him coming down to Troas, and here is where he's going next. They're taking the boat. He's coming through here. Why do you think he came through here? And remember, he'd been up all night. Why do you think he came through that way? There were people to meet. Maybe there was a group there at Assos. He wanted some time to be able to speak with them. Then they're going to come down here to Mytilene, and then down here to Kos, and then down here finally to Ephesus. And part of that we will get to in the next video because there's too much there and I don't want to sell it short. And when he met us at Assos, we took him on board and went to Mytilene. And sailing from there, we came the following day opposite Chios, and the next day we touched at Samos, and the day after that we went to Miletus. Luke is into detail. Luke is into details, and he's giving the journey, and this is likely the way one of these ships would have gone. These ships were not passenger ships for the most part. They were cargo ships. And so a ship would go along and stop at all the ports. And if you've ever watched anything on like the big container ships, we had all our stuff shipped to Peru. And along the way, that thing went from Savannah, all these different ports. You could watch it online, places it was going until it finally got to Lima, Peru. They stop in all the ports. They let take cargo off. They take cargo on. They take, in this case, passengers on, and they let passengers off. That is what Luke is describing, and anybody who would have sailed, anyone who had sailed and had experience with that would recognize this. This is the way journeys would go. They went to Miletus, for Paul had decided to sail past Ephesus so that he might not have to spend time in Asia, for he was hastening to be at Jerusalem, if possible, for the day of Pentecost. We talked before about unleavened bread. Now he's trying to get to, which was Passover time, trying to get to Jerusalem for Pentecost. That's 50 days. Luke is always giving these details that give us insight into the timeline and looking at how much traveling was done in a given period of time. So we're going to stop there because next time we've got Paul's lengthy visit with the Ephesian elders out on the beach side missions conference, you might call it, there at Ephesus. he's going to head on to Jerusalem, but I want to cover that in a standalone video. But I hope that this video has helped, this teaching has helped you see the way missions were done and the importance, something very easy to miss, the importance of building up those who have been brought to the faith. It is a key component. It's there in the Great Commission. And we see Paul and no doubt the other disciples operating this way. You had to save them, you had to bring them the gospel, and then you had to build them up and equip them. And also with that, prepare the people who were going to be their leaders. That's how it worked. So we will continue next time here in Acts 20. I do genuinely pray that this teaching, these videos, are a blessing to you. I encourage you, you can help support us and what we do. Simply give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel on whichever platform you're watching. We put videos on YouTube and BitChute. Also, share this video with others. It does make a difference. And finally, go out and visit us at decodingthedeception.com, and there you can find the playlists for all of our Bible videos, and you can also find out more about who we are and what we are about here at Decoding the. This is Matthias 76. God bless and have a great day.